In this part, we're going to be talking about tracking. There are, just like with clicking, different subcategories within tracking. I will go over each one, explaining what they help with and how to improve. Tracking isn't as important in some games as it is in others. I come from a tactical FPS background where tracking isn't nearly as important as clicking. It still has significant benefits to practice tracking even if your main games are tactical FPS games. Because regardless of if you play tactical FPS games, you still have to track the movement of your targets and make sure your crosshair stays on their head. The first category I want to talk about is precise tracking, also called smooth tracking sometimes. Targets move in predictable ways at the same speed. Direction changes are infrequent and predictable. Your goal in precise tracking is to be as smooth and stable with your aim as possible. So what are some tips for precise tracking? You gotta get used to the speed and movement of the bots initially. The speed is consistent and direction changes are predictable and infrequent. After the direction change, the bot also moves in that other direction in the same predictable speed and pattern again, until the next time it changes directions. Make sure while you're aiming, you don't clench your mouse too hard on these scenarios. It is easy to catch yourself squeezing your mouse really hard, especially if you're trying to be smooth, but you have a really fast sensitivity you cannot control. This can cause you to injure yourself or strain your wrist. Try to avoid this and have a loose but firm grip on your mouse. You will find scenarios with only horizontal movement, but also some with a lot of vertical movement. Scenarios with smaller objects and a lot of vertical movement can be very challenging. If you are a beginner, I would recommend focusing on scenarios with just slow horizontal movement at first. Get used to the concept of precise tracking before introducing vertical movement. Next is reactive tracking. Reactive tracking can be very intimidating for new players, especially if you are used to precise tracking scenarios. I find these scenarios especially annoying and always save them for last during my benchmarks. Reactive tracking scenarios have very stark changes in speed and direction. It's like a stress test for your smoothness. You will not be able to get used to it in the beginning because it's not something you have ever encountered in a real FPS game. It is very extreme. Tips I have for reactive tracking. Reading skills are actually really important for reactive tracking. You have to get used to the sporadic movements of the bot and the stark changes in speed and direction. You can get used to the general movement and pattern of the bots, but try not to predict what the target is going to do, or what direction it's going to go, or when it's going to change, but instead really just try to react to the movement. A lot of the movement changes are so unpredictable that you tend to overflick a lot in the beginning. Try to underflick instead, and adjust to the movements the bot is making in a smooth way. Try to stay smooth in your aim and don't overflick. Hold your mouse in a firm grip, but don't tense up and squeeze your mouse even if it is tempting to do so. Aim as much in the middle of the bot as possible so you don't lose accuracy when it suddenly changes directions or speed. There are two most common gauntlet scenarios in reactive tracking. There's air and ground scenarios. Air scenarios have a significant amount of vertical, reactive and horizontal tracking at the same time. These can be some of the most challenging scenarios in Kovacs. Ground scenarios have a significant amount of horizontal tracking, but they're still incredibly difficult. These are a great place to start to get into reactive tracking. You might find yourself getting really low scores initially, which might scare you off, or you might find them really annoying to do. But you will see giving the same scenario 10 different tries, from doing it for the first time till the 10th try, how fast you can improve on these. You really do get used to it. If I had to give a really specific tip for reactive tracking, specifically for the benchmarks, it's this. Most of the times, and it is in Season 5 and it was in Season 4, reactive tracking scenarios in the benchmarks have a gauntlet. So there's 3 or 4 or 5 different bots. In this season, it's 3 different bots. Some bots you will be better at than other bots. If there's a single bot within those 3 that you're struggling with, you can usually find that exact bot where you only practice the movements of that bot for a minute straight, so you can get better at it. And usually, there's also easier versions of it, so like the novice or intermediate versions, or even completely self-made scenarios by people that target a specific bot within the gauntlet or the whole gauntlet and make the target bigger, or make the movements less stark, so you can get used to the easier version before moving on to the real version. Control tracking is a new subcategory in the Kovacs Season 5 benchmarks. It is a combination of precise tracking and reactive tracking. They're usually small-sized targets with a significant amount of speed and direction changes. The direction and speed changes are frequent, but not as stark and sporadic as a reactive tracking scenario. You just want to spam these scenarios as much as possible. It's really about mouse control. Get used to the speed and pattern it mainly follows. React to the direction changes instead of trying to predict them, then fall back into the pattern and speed that you're used to. Aim as much in the middle as possible so you don't lose accuracy when it suddenly changes directions. Also, try not to overflick when the direction changes happen. Rather underflick, don't react too much to make unnecessary movements. Stay smooth in your aim and don't tense up. Once again, if you feel yourself really squeezing your mouse, you are tensing up too much. One thing I find really important to say is if you're tracking, especially reactive tracking, and you're trying to get a benchmark score and you've been going at it for 30 minutes to an hour and your arm is starting to hurt, you have to stop. Because you're tensing your arm so much, it's not going to get better if you continue, and you really might risk injuring yourself. There's a lot of really good stretches, you can find them in the Discord as well, for your wrists and your arm. I would recommend stretching after and before if you're doing a lot of reactive tracking. So that was it for this part, which was about tracking. The previous videos were about clicking and how to set up your Kovacs. And next week there is a target switching guide. So I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the comments or come to my Twitch chat. And I'll see you in the next video.